Zac Jackson joins us, and I have a question for Zac off the top. Zac, we did a poll yesterday. We discussed ranking of the most attractive head coach openings, specifically in the AFC North between Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and Cleveland. Bull and the people on the panel yesterday said it's a no-brainer. Pittsburgh was more attractive. We had over 2,000 votes in the chat. And
Pittsburgh versus just Cleveland.
Just
you
Pittsburgh
mentioned Baltimore.
Yeah.
Obviously, Baltimore's the most attractive.
So which was more attractive between Pittsburgh and Cleveland? Of over 2,000 votes, 53% of people said Cleveland was more attractive of a head coach opening than Pittsburgh. Would you agree with the chat, or do you agree with Bull?
On the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, that was the answer. That's stunning. Historically, Pittsburgh's obviously a better job. Right now, I think there's some similarities. Right? Pittsburgh's got no quarterback.
Talk your stuff, Jack. That's what I'm talking about.
Got an old defense and got some money issues they got to confront. Now, they have a better offensive line situation, right? And they probably have more stability to offer. I mean, I don't think the GM's going anywhere unless he continues to fail on offense, if this all sounds familiar. So I think it's similar. In Pittsburgh, you have the standard of you have to have a winning record every year. And you look around the division, you should think that you can. Here in Cleveland, I really think that this is trending towards embracing the full-scale rebuild. I think mid-27 is the next time we're going to get a real feel on where the Browns are. A lot of time to go, a lot of key decisions in paving that. But if we're being honest about this coaching search and about the state of things, then this team is, as Jason just mentioned, mostly first and second year players, no answers at key positions, and no way to fix this offense in 1 year. 2027 and beyond is what we're looking at for the Browns.
And people say I'm negative.
Yeah. Well, but Zac said Zac said the Browns' job is not.
No, he's telling the truth. Zach's telling the truth. I'm just having fun.
Right. No. But are you saying the Browns' job is as good as the Steelers' job?
I think it's close. I think it's close right now for sure.
I just think.
Listen.
Yeah.
If there's three good candidates, Bull, if it's Shula and two other guys, I think they'll pick Pittsburgh. But I don't know. I don't know these guys. I don't know what they think.
Right.
Just historically, you would pick Pittsburgh.
Right.
Stability
that's the end. Yeah.
One team has won 20 games and gone to the playoffs the last 2 years. The other team's won 8.
I think that's ultimately the difference. You're right. Like, the Steelers' job is not what it's always been, of course, right now, because I don't think they're that talented. But you have, there's more stability there. You go there and you're not getting fired right away. They don't, the owner doesn't meddle in the same way. And so ultimately, I would think any coach that had a choice between the two would choose Pittsburgh. And so to me, that's why it's the better job. But yeah, I agree the gap's not as big as it used to be, of course. But still, I just can't see an argument for why anybody would take this job over that. I think you got to do a lot of work before you could change people's minds on that.
I totally agree. I mean, I just think Pittsburgh historically, where they've hired, it's been a guy in his 30s who hasn't been a head coach before. I think they have a lot to sell Chris Shula, if for example, if that's the guy they want to go. So we'll see. He's an interesting one. You guys were talking about the defensive fronts and the way he's done things. In his time, McVay is his buddy from college, and that's how he got hired there. But he worked under 3 different defensive coordinators before he came the coordinator himself. And when he took over 2 years ago, it was right after Aaron Donald retired. So I think they had their defensive line rotation. 6 were first and second year players. So he's done it different ways. He's kind of seen it all. He is that developmental guy. I don't know if the Browns want to or can hire a defensive coach, but of the 10 guys on their dance card, he's the one that really jumps off the page to me. Now, is he going to consider the Browns, or do the Browns want to hire a defensive coach? I tend to lean towards no in both of those answers.
Let me ask you about this, Zach, because you just mentioned all of the negative things about Cleveland. Why would a coach take the job then? If it's no money and
if you have no other options.
No good, forget all that option stuff. If you're my first-year head coach, this is going to be my first time. If I'm only getting 2 years, he just said mid-27 is the next time you can even expect anything. So, again, you 1 year in the hole already to start. And you only
you're signing a deal for 5 or 6 years, Tyvis. That's fully guaranteed, by the way, and top of the market. But I've asked this question, or it's come up in discussions, and what people have told me is that unless you're Ben Johnson, you don't turn this down, right? You believe in yourself. If you get to the point where they want you and you want them, then you make the bet on yourself and on them and on getting the right staff and on having the timeline to do the right things. So, like I said, I'm not trying to be negative. I'm trying to be real here. And I think as the Browns get to a point here, especially if some of these other guys come off the board, they might be looking at these younger guys and saying, hey, what's it look like in a year? Like, this quarterback situation is awful. It can be better in a year. This offensive line situation is awful. It almost has to be better in a year. And so if you think you're going to have another good draft class, if you think you really don't have an answer in the quarterback spot right now, and you probably don't, then the reality is you're looking down the road. So if you want to go with a young coach in that way and let him grow into the role, that's fine. And just because you didn't get Harbaugh or didn't get Chris Shula, the names that people know, that doesn't mean you lost the search or that it's a hopeless situation. You can look at it that way, but it doesn't have to be that at all.
Zach, I ask these guys all the time. We do it after every game, every day when we do the show. I say, look, all right, give me a percentage of who you think will be the quarterback. What would you make the percentage of Jim Schwartz versus the rest of the field? Who would you say has a better chance of, or higher percentage chance of actually becoming a coach?
The rest of the field. Now, I think Schwartz has a realistic possibility if enough of these guys pass, or if they just don't end up liking some of these young guys. But the way I understand it is they're leaning towards these young guys because they like them, but they think they're more likely to keep Schwartz as defensive coordinator, and they want to keep this defensive together. Now, going forward, is keeping Myles Garrett happy as important as fixing this offense? No. Is keeping this defense together as good as it is and as good as some of these pieces are more important than finding the right offensive pieces? It's absolutely not. So I do think there's a scenario where Schwartz is the head coach here, Garrett, but I think that's pretty far down the list. So picking the field or Schwartz is an easy answer. And I put Schwartz maybe 4th or 5th, just on my feel of this situation right now.
Do you think they know who they want?
I don't think they know right now, Jason. I don't think they know because there's too many openings and because there's too many guys they haven't formally met with. So what it comes down to for me, and this is not an especially profound thought, but it's the simplest way I can say it. If you really want Udinski or Shieldhouse or Pitcher because you really believe in those guys and the goal of this is to find Jerome McVay or Shanahan, and that's a fine goal, frankly, then you do it. But if you end up with one of those guys because you got turned down 2 or 3 times or because those are the only guys that would stick with Schwartz or stick with other things you want, then you've got bad dynamics from the start. And that's the story of this organization and specifically of this regime, bad dynamics, right? Since 2022. They've had no leadership. They've had a mess at quarterback situation. They've had a he said, she said. And they can come out and say it's not dysfunctional all they want. That's great. They won 8 games in 2 years. They have an awful, awful offense. So, that's what it is. So, I think Mike McDaniel is a leading offensive candidate. Obviously, he's the most experienced. He's won. He's done it. He's been here before. I think Pitcher's next in that line. But I don't think they know right now because they haven't met with these guys and they don't know realistically when they call back to do the couple of finalists or to talk about, okay, we want you. What are the next steps with the coordinators with building this thing? To me, there's no guarantee they'd be on the same page at this stage. A week from now, yes. Right now, I would lean towards no on that answer.
When you look at this list of head coaches that Mike keeps flashing, is there anybody on that list that you'll say, you know what, those guys can come in and get the respect of the players right away, like the Myles Garretts? Because I just think that they need somebody that can hold players accountable, so you don't hear about the off-the-field stuff, that the pre-snap penalties and stuff like that. Is there a name out there that you're like, you know what, that guy could come in and get that done, can change that?
Yeah, that's a hard one, Tyvis, because you would expect that guys do that. And that's why I'm kind of surprised that I don't see Robert Salah on this list, considering he's been a head coach before and it was the Jets and he knows messes, right? So maybe he will end up among that group. I always thought they might lean towards experience as a head coach. And so far it's only Schwartz and McDaniel of the 10, right? And then you have guys like people are like, well, Dan Pitcher, he's not even 40 and he hasn't ever called plays. Well, he's been in the NFL longer than Shieldhouse and Udinski have been combined. So I think there's guesswork, and I think it's a fine question, Tyvis. I think it's guesswork, and I think it really comes down to the leaders on the team deciding they want to do that, and it really comes down to going forward, establishing that quarterback who everybody follows, and the locker room sorting itself from there.
This team kind of has a history of coming back a second time around. They interviewed Kevin the first time, didn't take him. Took him the second time around. You mentioned Salah. We've spent 0 time talking about him.
I like the idea of Salah.
They haven't requested an interview yet. So
I'd rather have Salah than McDaniel.
But I'm wondering when the 49ers are done, so I guess 2 ways to put it. 1, do you think Salah could still be in play? And 2, are there still more names to come as teams get eliminated?
Bring my DC back to Cleveland.
So
because Salah, I should finish that point. Salah was runner-up to Stefanski the last time.
2020.
That's why
Yes.
I mentioned it.
Yeah.
And Salah's Salah's interviewing with the Dolphins today. So now that it's out of the first round, these guys still in the playoffs can't interview. He's interviewing with the Dolphins today for their head coach spot.
So with Salah and Kubiak and Halfley to an extent, are they not on the list because the Browns, want an offensive guy or don't want to go that way? Or are they not on the list because it was passed along like, don't bother, like we got something lined up? That's a valid question. So I think, Jason, there's probably a stronger chance than not that these are the 10. Obviously, you can scratch a few, Monken, probably dirty, right? And you go from there. So is there a surprise college candidate? I don't think there is. Does something change next week as other jobs get filled? So I think there's a strong chance that it comes from this group of 10, but I wouldn't close that door until we get into next week and start to get more clarity, not just on the Browns job, but on other jobs.
Zach, is there a guy on the list where you look at it and you'd be like, ooh, I don't know about this one. Like just more reservations with a candidate than the other ones, because for me, I'm pretty open book. I don't have no inside information of what they're gonna do, how they want to move with it. I'm just sitting here watching it, kind of. But do you have a gut feeling on somebody on the list where you like, I don't know about that one?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple that I never believed. I think I already, mentioned those guys. Yeah. I have a hard time believing they would actually hire Shieldhouse 2 years in the NFL and 35, or Grant Udinski just turned 30 the other day. I have a hard time believing that. I'm not totally ruling it out. I think of the guys they've already interviewed, I think it goes McDaniel, pitcher. And then I think it's interesting. I don't consider Jesse Minter a candidate. I think he'll have better options, and his defensive philosophy is totally different than what they have here. But it really comes down to, what kind of timeline they're on. Are they really forcing Jim Schwartz, or is that optional? And then what are the dynamics of the whole thing? So I don't think ultimately that any of these guys outside of Shula and potentially McDaniel might tell them no. I mean, my holdup with McDaniel is that he's only getting one more chance here. Yep. So it's not just, do I want to use it on the Browns, but does he want to jump right back in when he has an offensive coordinator opportunity? I mean, the guy's a proven offensive coordinator, and given his experience as a head coach and with successful offenses, of course you want to talk to him. Of course you got him on the list. But where is he in his career, and what does he really think about this versus his other options? We don't know that right now.
Yeah, Tyvis said earlier he should go to the Lions as an OC. I think Tyvis is right. That'd be a perfect fit for him.
Yeah, there's going to, when there's still 8 jobs open, that means there's 8 offensive coordinator jobs open too. Yep. And he's just like Kevin Stefanski, he's getting paid. He can wait. He can wait it out. He doesn't need to jump in just to say he jumped in.
Zach, when you look at some of these guys that they brought in for head coaching opportunities, do you think that possibly it's not for head coaches, just for a coordinator position? Like some of these OCs?
Yeah, I think Shieldhouse is going to be somebody's – I think Shieldhouse is going to be somebody's offensive coordinator next year. That probably is wherever Chris Shula lands, but we'll see. Udinski has a coordinator job. Pitcher has a coordinator job. So is that potentially lining up for a certain way in certain movement? Yes, it could be. And so that's why I'm not completely convinced that this is the list, but this is probably the list. I always would have stacked them, Shula and Halfley and Salah kind of at the top. 2 of those guys have some head coach experience. And the way I stack them now is McDaniel, pitcher, and then let's see what happens with Shula and Shieldhouse.
Zach,
No, go ahead.
We haven't really kind of talked about this. Dante Moore goes back to school. It looks like Mendoza is the first pick. Ty Simpson is still in this draft. Do you think people will now, or there's a chance they pivot to some of the retreads? We've heard Malik Willis. We've heard
Mac Jones.
Guys like that who they can bring in. Or do you feel like this is going to be a room where, I guess, all 3 of the guys in Deshaun Watson, Shedeur Sanders, and Dylan Gabriel will comprise mainly of the quarterback room in 2026? Or do you think they'll do something like maybe get a retread or draft somebody in the later round?
Well, the thought that you'd get Malik Willis on 1 year, $12 million, and give him a shot is long gone. The market says he's going to get more money and more years from somebody. I don't know that the Browns are in that position right now. I'm trending towards Shedeur kind of having first crack at this job by default. And the other thing is, guys, and I'm prepared to be wrong. I mean, I've been right so many times, I've been getting tired of it, so I'm kind of glad I'm wrong on this, except for one thing. Here, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but doesn't this feel like it's setting up for them to get somebody to give Deshaun Watson one more chance?
Yes.
Like if Mike McDaniel's the coach here, doesn't it feel like that? And doesn't it make you just want to rip your microphone off and beat your head into that glass table in front of you right now? Yes.
To your point, to that point, Dolphins had a deal basically done with Houston before the allegations were settled.
That's when Flores was the coach there.
Oh, that was when Flores was?
Yeah.
That was with Flores, yes.
Okay.
Right.
Well, by the time the trade was actually made, McDaniel was the coach there.
Miami was in on him.
So-
I don't remember now the timing of who was the coach.
That
But
was a
Miami,
thing that was rumored, and then it was dispelled later, I think. But
I don't know.
yeah,
At the
I
very
mean,
least, it's set up for Deshaun Watson to be part of a competition.
absolutely. It's just a numbers game, Bull, right?
Yeah.
It's just a numbers game, and this is a team that every year has to play 3 quarterbacks, and like the one guy that we know, barring something sensible, and just getting rid of him, which they can't do because they've done this to themselves, is that he's going to get an opportunity. And so people are like, well, what's wrong with him as a bridge quarterback? It's a bridge to nowhere. He can't play.
You done made a lot.
Small hands.
You done made a lot of people upset, man. So Shedeur Sanders is quarterback number 1, and Deshaun Watson is the backup. Heading into
Yeah, so how does that
2026.
change? I will say the way that changes is if it's a trade for Mac Jones, and I do see that as a somewhat realistic possibility. Now, right here in mid-January, I'm not ready to say how realistic, but the options are going to be few, and I just see it pointing that direction. Now, you can't, even if I was more certain, like we don't know who the coach is going to be or the coordinator, right? We don't know what any of those discussions are about. But right now, I think if they were going out to starting training camp tomorrow instead of starting phase 3 of their coach search, to me, there's no question that he would be the starting quarterback. I think they'll trade Dylan Gabriel for nothing. It will be Shedeur, Deshaun, and a rookie.
Drew Aller.
Yeah, it might be Nussmeier, it might be Aller, it might be this Robertson from Baylor. Like this whole part of it is just starting.
Yeah. Zach, great stuff as always, man. We'll talk to you again soon. Well, I'll talk to you tomorrow on the podcast, but
Appreciate
we'll
you.
talk to you later.
All right, guys. Thank you.